the heart of America, I'm Steve Gruber, ready to deliver an inclusive and diverse discussion on the most important topics of the day, giving you better analysis and insight than anyone else, shining a spotlight on those cockroaches in the swamp and delivering truth when hope is starting to fade. Here's 3 big things you need to know right now. Number 1, an Ohio school district is giving qualified staff the opportunity to carry concealed. They say they will not be a soft target for an attack. Number 2, Elon Musk says AI could be the death of us all, and he may well be right. I mean, who's keeping this stuff on a short leash? And number 3, at what point do you admit you were wrong? Dead wrong. When do you finally admit that your biggest enemy is your biggest enemy, and they've been playing you for a very long time? Look, China, and specifically the Chinese Communist Party, is the biggest existential threat to America, and honestly, the rest of the world. It all began to come into full relief when the Wuhan virus was released from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Most educated timetables now put that all the way back to late summer or early fall of 2019. And as I have told you from the very beginning, COVID-19 was on the ground right here in America before Thanksgiving in 2019, sometime at least by the early part of November that year. Instead of warning the world, China locked down travel inside its country, locked it down. But it sent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of its people all over the world, knowing full well that they would infect the world, and of course, they did. The result was devastating to millions of people that died, but it also crippled the economy worldwide, and it allowed the CCP and China to capitalize on the pandemic to make an enormous profit while normalizing the forfeiture of freedom by billions of people globally. It was a remarkable test run, I'll give them that. But it was not the beginning. No, this kind of move to turn the tables on the West has been decades in the planning. China has infiltrated America for decades in a variety of ways that seemed mundane for a very long time. I mean, growing up, I would hear references to Confucius, the Chinese philosopher. So when Confucius Institutes began springing up on college campuses, I didn't pay a lot of attention. Most people didn't. In the late 80s, the big surge to move manufacturing to China was an exciting time. Companies and people I knew moved quickly and delivered products to the American market at lightning speed and often at great prices. You know that, and so do I. Of course, over time, we learned that products were often produced at inferior standards and oftentimes with dangerous chemicals or side effects. Do you remember the horror stories of contaminated drywall that came from China and got thousands of people sick, or dog food and cat food that was made with God only knows what, that caused the deaths of thousands of pets in this country and around the world? Do you remember those stories? Maybe we should have taken time to ask questions then, but instead we kept right on going. And some continue to say that, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Just look the other way. And no matter how daunting the threats, Joe Biden just continues to be cavalier. He does. Listen to this.
President Xi and Vladimir Putin have met on the same day that you and I are sitting here in the White House. And I wonder if this is a new, more complicated Cold War. How do you manage it?
I don't think it is a new, more complicated Cold War. Look, when President Xi invited Putin to Beijing during the Olympics, where they had their meeting and the new relationship, not long after that, I called President Xi. Not to threaten at all, just to say to him, we've met many times. And I said that if you think that Americans and others will continue to invest in China based on your violating the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, I think you're making a gigantic mistake, but that's for your decision to make. Thus far, there's no indication that they've put forward weapons or other things that Russia has wanted. So, well, maybe I shouldn't say anymore.
Oh, I wish you would.
No.
Yeah. You know, while he has been completely asleep, at about the same time Joe was asleep, the messaging on global warming and climate change really began to ramp up. Some of it was subtle, but a lot of it was anything but. And we learned a long time ago that Russia was behind a lot of the advertising to push Americans into resenting so-called fossil fuels so they could sell their own and make money. Well, now we know China was behind a lot of those efforts, too. In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has been on the move to get into America by way of stealth ever since Richard Nixon opened the door back in 1972. What we should all realize now is that that was not a door. That was not a door at all, but it was the mother of all Pandora's boxes, because the invasion from all directions has been underway ever since, including balloons in the air that have also been poo-pooed completely. Listen to this.
Have relations now between the U.S. and China taken a big hit,
No.
frankly?
No.
How do you know?
I know. I talked to him.
You've talked to
Talked to Xi Jinping before. And our team talks to their people.
during this and
Yeah,
since?
after this. I haven't talked to him during this.
Oh.
But look, I mean, the idea of shooting down a balloon that's gathering information over America, that makes relations worse. Look, I made it real clear to Xi Jinping that we're going to compete fully with China, but we're not looking for conflict, and that's been the case so far.
Well, guess what? They are looking for conflict, genius. You're not at war, but they are with us on every front. We've been robbed blind of intellectual property while we moved massive amounts of manufacturing and capital and resources to China. We transferred trillions of dollars from our country to theirs. And we all celebrated because we had toys. Lots and lots of toys. Because all the trinkets and trash and consumer items were cheap, baby. You could buy TVs and phones and cameras and video games, cookware, dishes, appliances, and all kinds of things to distract you while the CCP oozed in deeper and deeper. Now it's social media delivering the propaganda, and yet politicians on all sides, including the president, still look the other way. Listen to this.
On TikTok, you have been outspoken against a ban. Is there anything that you could learn about what the Chinese have access to, what they're doing with it, that would prompt you to support a ban?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of Chinese espionage or Chinese...
The intel or anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen... There hasn't been like a top secret congressional briefing on what China is doing with TikTok. We've never had that. At the same time, Facebook, in real time, ignored Russian interference in our 2016 elections. Like, that happened. That's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact. Here's what a fact is. A fact is that China has pushed its tentacles all over America. And people like Jamal Bowman there, Democrat, member of Congress, or Joe Biden, the president, currently weakest president of my lifetime, maybe weakest in American history, one of the weakest anyhow, have done nothing to protect this country from the invasion, whether it's intellectual property, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the open border where Chinese nationals, the increase there is 800% over the last few months. These are all concerning, and I have more. I'm just getting started here as I dissect this because the big revelation comes after the break here on the Steve Gruber Show. Don't go anywhere.